Welcome to Industrial Marketing Live. I'm Erin Burrish, a senior strategist here at the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76 and one of your IML hosts. Today, we are joined by special guest Julian Schaaf to talk about what's working marketing-wise for industrial startups. But before we jump into that, we have a bonus special guest, Gorilla 76 co-founder Joe Sullivan, who's here to make a very special announcement. So I'll give Joe the floor for about 5 minutes, and then we'll jump into our main topic for today. Joe, take it away.
All right, awesome. You guys seeing my screen? Somebody give me a nod.
We see it.
Okay, good. Great. Well, thank you for giving me the stage, Aaron and Peyton. I'm going to keep this to about 5 minutes here so we can, I'm very curious to hear what Julian has to share and want to get to him. But wanted to take a moment to officially soft launch something we've been building for about a year. We intended to be building it for about 6 months, and here we are, about a year later, of course. But so this is the soft launch of Industrial Marketing Collective. We have obviously been running these Industrial Marketing Live webinars for almost 4 years now. We have been facilitating the Slack group for 2 to 3 years that runs alongside this, that I think many of you are in and active in. The community is already here. Like, you guys are the community, you've built it. And what we're doing now is we are giving this community a name, which is Industrial Marketing Collective. And we're going to give it a true software platform to sit on top of. So you can think of Industrial Marketing Collective really as the name of this community. Industrial Marketing Live are the events put on by the community. The Slack group will remain the forum. And we're essentially, what we're doing now is layering on a whole bunch more. So you can see the URL up there already. Some of you probably are going there already, but it's industrialmarketingcollective.com. Feel free to jump in there and dig around. So what is included? What are we doing here aside from Industrial Marketing Live, which will continue for free as it always has twice a month. The Slack group will continue as it has as the forum for people to interact and ask questions and learn from each other. So what we've also done here is we are creating a pro membership. We're going to try starting it at $99 a month. And there's going to be essentially a whole bunch of other stuff layered inside of the platform, which includes some of the following. Our team, Gorilla, experts of all different backgrounds, we've essentially built out a training course. There's over 10 hours of video content in here across 57 videos and organized into 11 lessons. You can kind of click on this and see we just posted 3 of the 57 videos in there, so you can kind of get a taste of like what that is. But we are essentially teaching our playbook that we run for our clients, start to finish, giving everything away, teaching every bit and piece of it. We are going to be doing weekly office hours for pro members, which are essentially ask me anything sessions, where we'll have 1 or maybe 2 of our strategists or writers, depending on what the week is, that are going to be on Wednesdays live to just answer whatever questions you guys have, help you in any way we can. And then we have all of our tools and templates that we use for our clients to implement their programs, just available for download and use for yourselves. Every week we are going to publish one either mini lesson, like Aaron Burst has already recorded a couple 5-10 minute videos on sort of niche topics, as well as some written content in there. So that's already rolling once a week. And then there'll be a weekly email digest that you can turn on or off, or adjust your preferences for, that sort of will just round up everything that's happened in the community that week that you'll get on Thursdays. So a few other things, I'm going to just give you a peek inside there. The platform we have built this on is called Circle. Some of you may be in communities that are running on Circle already. If anybody is a member of Exit 5, Dave Gerhardt's community, that runs on Circle. If there are any parents out there who know who Dr. Becky is, I am in her community, which is an amazing resource. There's a little side plug for her, but she's got a few 100,000 people in here or something like that, something crazy. But here is Industrial Marketing Collective, which is now up and running on Circle. A few of you have already jumped in there, I know. when you jump in, you'll be taken to this welcome start here page where we kind of give you a little intro, lay out everything that's in here. You'll be prompted to go say hello, introduce yourself. Industrial Marketing Live. So there's a tab for Industrial Marketing Live. What we will be doing in the future is posting all upcoming events with a description of them. So you can see what's ahead here after today's session. The next one's reporting without a CRM, then knowledge extraction, subject matter expert interviews. So those events will be listed here. As we decide the agendas for them, we'll post additional information in here so you kind of know what to expect. We will also, there's an upcoming events and a past events tab. I am going to be retroactively loading in all past sessions that we've run. So you will have an index right here of every past event and all the videos, recordings from them. So they'll all be sort of cataloged right there for easy access. As we kind of click through the navigation here, we're doing a few things to sort of mimic what's going on in the Slack channel, because we just want to see how you guys actually make use of this versus Slack. So we posted a few, just sort of starter discussions here. All of you are welcome to post your own questions, discussions, comment on these things. It's really nice interface. And then inside the pro section, so there's a comprehensive training course that I mentioned. There are 57 videos across 10 lessons. They're all in here. When you click on any individual one, you'll have this side nav. Here's, the sixth sub lesson of lesson 6, I guess. So all the video content's here. We have descriptions of each lesson. We have all the tools we referenced in it, all the slides from that lesson. We have the office hours section. So as of now, we're going to be running these on Wednesday from 11 to 12 CST. The first one will be April 17th with Grace Wright and Aaron Burrish. Then we got the next one in here too, but these will be every Wednesday. Come ask questions. We'll help you with whatever you need help with. The tools and playbooks section, we've got, again, all the tools that we use for our clients loaded in here for you to download. And then this mini lessons and expert advice, as I mentioned, we'll be publishing one new thing every single week in here. And so that's really it. One thing I wanted to note is, like, if you go here to industrialmarketingcollective.com and click the request access button, kind of lay out very simply the ground rules here. The thing we want to make sure that continues is that this remains a value-driven community. We don't have people in here trying to just promote themselves, advertise, solicit people. So we're going to be selective and make sure we're letting people in who have the right intents. Anybody here right now, you're all welcome in. You're a part of this community already. You guys are the community. So you can either go to industrialmarketingcollective.com, click the request access button, just put your name in here and hit submit, and that'll prompt us to manually let you in, which we'll be doing in the week ahead. We'll just be kind of rolling people in bit by bit. Or you can also just ping any of us who are here, Aaron or Peyton or Moby or me or whoever, and we'll make sure to get you in there. So that's it. Really excited about what we got here. Hope to see you guys in there. Aaron, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe, for that super compact rundown introduction of the Industrial Marketing Collective. We're all really excited about it. Without further ado, though, let's jump into our topic for today. So as I mentioned earlier, today we're talking about what's working for industrial startups and how it might work for you too, with the help of our guest, Julian Schaaf. So Julian, please say hello and tell us a little bit more about how you fit into the industrial ecosystem.
Hey, I just made an addition. What's not working? I'll try to talk about that too. Yeah, I guess a quick intro, right? Is that what I'm supposed to? Okay, sorry, I'm a little nervous, to be honest, but yeah, I know a lot of the people here from past IML, and then a lot of the gorillas, obviously. I started in 2017, I think, as junior strategist at Gorilla. The crew is a little smaller then, so really cool to see it grow and see what Joe and John have built, and obviously everyone else since then. Yeah, I later led the strategy department. I was there for 3 years. Really fortunate to have learned from a lot of strategy chops from Joe. Grace was still a writer then, so learned a lot about writing from her. Yeah, I learned a lot from everyone, honestly. So it was really great. Some of the best 3 years of my career, I think. That's why I keep coming back, because I like the people, and it's just always nice to be here. Um, yeah, maybe in terms of my qualifications, why can I give some advice? I think I worked with maybe 10 to 20 clients while I was at Gorilla. Some were just the initial consulting gig, and then some were long-term clients, helped them build marketing. Then after that, I worked with 2 startups as head of marketing. One was a high growth company in the call center software space, so completely different. And yeah, they were super heavy on paid ads and enterprise sales. And then the second gig was a team building software that was self-serve, and it built a really neat SEO program there. So that was what I was expecting, honestly. But yeah, did all kinds of things in the startup space. Got a few different perspectives of how different companies who are selling different products are taking different approaches on selling their product. And now I'm trying to combine those 2 backgrounds. So industrial marketing at Gorilla with the startup background, and I'm working with industrial startups to help them build marketing. Usually they have smaller budgets. Oftentimes the founders have an engineering background. Marketing isn't their strength. They've been super sales heavy, but haven't really figured out how to make marketing work. So I helped them build it. At first it was just me. Now I'm bringing on someone full time. So yeah, it's called Industrial Growth if you want to check it out. But yeah, I tried lots of things. We talked a little bit last week about what to talk about. I think the thing that you guys might find helpful is that I'm used to working with small budgets and either no team or a really small team, like 1 to 2 people. Yeah, I feel like I screwed a lot of things up too, tried a lot of things. So yeah, I'm hoping to share some of the things that I've learned along the way.
So cool. We're so happy to have you, Julian. And I think Joe mentioned it, but I'll mention it again. Like Industrial Marketing Live has been around since 2020 because Julian had the idea to start a webinar series. And so we're just super happy to have him back on in, 2024, still going strong after all this time. Can't believe we've been doing 2 episodes a month since then. So yeah, it's been cool. And we're just happy to keep sharing the knowledge and have you back on the show. So thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Where do we start?
Man, where do we start? Well, we could start with what's not working. No, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting the things that keep coming up again and again when I hear about startups, and I think that have come up on this show a few times, have been like, they move so fast, everything's changing so quickly, and so I think that's one of the big like lessons that I hear shouted a lot on LinkedIn is speed and like being able to learn and iterate. And so I guess I would like to hear like your take on, speed. How important has that been to the companies that you've been working with? And is it something that we should try to emulate?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like speed in the startup world is like a given. I think whenever I start working with someone, they basically ask, okay, can we get started yesterday and can we do it faster? I remember that from my Gorilla days, but they actually follow through on it. They just like to move really fast, and they're small teams. And yeah, why does it matter? Just because you can learn so much quicker. And I think learning is just how you figure out what works. Because I don't have the perfect blueprint for what's going to work, to be honest. It's maybe a good reminder, like, yeah, I'm here to talk about this, but I also don't have the blueprint for what's going to work because every product and every buyer is a little bit different. So there's always going to be an element of figuring out how this is going to work, and you're never going to have it all figured out. So if you move slowly, like if you have really long approval processes and it takes you a long time to get things done, then it's just in any given year, you're not going to learn enough to make an impact or to just get ahead, if that makes sense. And I just can't afford not to move fast with my clients, because if I took if I took months to learn and to get things done, they would not be my clients anymore. So I don't have a choice. And this is a bit abstract, but I talked with Joe last year actually about how to make speed happen and why some manufacturing companies or some traditional companies maybe aren't so fast. And I think it comes down to three things that we talked about, Joe. I think it was goals, trust, and skill. And the first one is just a little bit on goals. A lot of marketing teams in these companies don't have goals in place for marketing, or the company as a whole. So, how are you going to move fast if you have no idea where you're going? It's pretty much impossible. And a lot of times marketing asks for goals, but doesn't get one. So that's more of a leadership problem. Sometimes the company has goals, but marketing doesn't have one. So that's more of a marketing problem. So that's something to think about. And those goals could be, ideally they're tied to revenue and pipeline, but they could be, baby steps. Improving the website is usually a good baby step for a lot of companies. The second was trust. So it's also usually a leadership problem. Is if you don't have trust, or if the marketing team doesn't have trust, it's impossible to move fast because you're constantly asking for permission to do things instead of, the ideal environment where you can move fast is that your boss trusts you to just do the right thing and make the right decision and run things by them if they need to, if you need to. But I see a lot of environments where there isn't that trust in marketing. You have to ask for approval for everything. And, every little new thing that you try gets scrutinized. And it's like, no, we don't want to do that. The risk is too high. So, it's impossible to move fast. So if you're a leader and you're lacking speed, you should probably ask yourself if the problem is with you. And if you don't have the trust from your leadership team, it depends on the relationship you have, but sometimes it can be a thing to bring up. Like, hey, if you want me to move faster, I need your trust. I can't really work like this. That's easier said than done, but that's the second component. And the third one, I think I will mention last, is skill. Obviously, you need to know what you're doing to move fast, but oftentimes I don't feel like that's where people get stuck. I feel like it's usually the first two. Anyway, I think, Grace, you also had a good point last week when we were talking about a lot of people considering the risk of moving fast and then not doing it, but forgetting about the risk of not moving faster, the risk of doing nothing. If you want to chime in on that.
Yeah, I think like something that pauses people is just like the fear of getting something wrong, or the fear of getting something that isn't perfect out in the market. But when you're really moving slowly, like you're accepting risk of like not having validated learnings 3 months from now, not learning more about what makes your audience tick 3 months from now. So people don't realize that they're accepting that risk when they move slowly.
And maybe to think about it in a different way too, if the traditional companies aren't going to move fast, the startups and me who are able to move fast, they will, and they'll eventually eat you up. Maybe it's not going to be next year, but maybe in 10, 20, 30 years, if you're thinking about the long run, because those startups, they're moving fast and they figured it out. So if you're not going to, and your leadership doesn't figure out how to, they'll eventually lose market share to the startups that move fast because they're not so scared of risk and they're just hungry and they just go for it. Maybe they'll screw up, but in the end, they'll learn quickly.
Julian, one thing we talked about in our prep call was this idea of working in like 6-week cycles, or this term kind of comes from SaaS, but like sprints. Can you tell us a little bit about how that happens and what the benefit is?
Yeah. I think it also, I'm just looking at your question, Dale. I think it's also related to your question, Dale. Like Dale is asking since things change quickly, how often should goals be revisited? So I've seen companies do this in different ways. One really popular system to use for implementing goals into your work is OKRs, objectives and key results, which is pretty popular in the tech world. So in there, you change your goals every 3 months. And the idea there is that the whole company is using OKRs. So the leadership sets the objectives for the company, and then everybody knows the direction to go in. and marketing department derives their objectives from the company objectives, and that's repeated every 3 months. And I work in 6-week cycles with my clients. It sometimes seems a little short, so I'm kind of, yeah, sometimes I wonder if I should extend it to a little bit longer, maybe 8 to 10 weeks, but that's how I revisit my goals, because yeah, we're able to move pretty quickly on what we're working on. But that way you have some consistency, because if you do it week by week and you don't do any long-term planning at all, then you kind of get sucked into the day-to-day and you forget the big picture really easily, especially in small teams where you don't have anyone to guide you strategically. And if you do like 6-week cycles, or if you're using OKRs, you have a good combo of, you're able to move fast and have quick learning cycles, but also, yeah, keep in mind the long-term goals. Going to shows each week.
Yeah, I know. I think that's another thing that industrial marketers deal with. And I think another barrier to speed is like just all the competing tasks that you have sometimes. Like you may have, even if you have goals and you have trust, you also have to plan like a trade show every other month, or you have to, there are activities outside of, you know, those direct goals that are sometimes necessary to support other parts of the business. So I don't know, Julian or other gorillas, like if you have any advice for that, like maybe does it just mean your cycle gets a little bit longer? Like how to achieve focus and speed kind of together?
Yeah, focus is tough. I mean, I struggle still with, okay, there's too many things to do in the given time. So it's not really, I don't know if it's ever something that you can solve completely, but I honestly think it comes down to the relationship with your leader or your boss, whoever it is, because sometimes the trying to do everything at once comes from like pressure from the top. Like they expect you to post on Twitter or X. Sorry, I'm a grandpa. It's still called Twitter in my world. They just have these expectations, or maybe you're feeling the expectations that you have to do all this. And usually I have some honest conversations with my clients, and like, if I'm gonna try to do all this, I'm definitely gonna half-ass some of it. And then my clients are a little, yeah, they're just techier, so they're used to like the what's it called, flatter hierarchy, and having those conversations. But I know it's hard to have those conversations in more traditional companies where your bosses maybe aren't used to those conversations. But I think that's in the end how I would solve that, is trying to have more honest conversations. Like, hey, there's no way I can do all this really well. Can we focus on, like, if I were to focus on 3 things, what do you think would be the most impactful, like this quarter, this year? That's probably the kind of conversation you want to have.
I would totally agree with that, Julian. That's the word that kind of kept coming into my mind as Erin was asking her question, was impact. It's like, what activities are actually going to drive the most impact? And those are going to be the most worth your time, because it's going to move the needle further. So if you can do your, you know, your sprints or your cycles of work, whether it's at 6 weeks or a quarterly cycle, whatever works for you, but focusing on just a few things that are going to move the needle most for you. That's what I think. And then letting, you know, there's time around those things where you can do little projects, but
but picking the focus areas, and then actually making sure you're time blocking, so you're actually putting the time to those focus areas and don't get distracted. But yeah, as a boss, honestly, I would love if somebody came to me and asked me, hey, what do you think are the 3 most impactful things I could do this quarter or this year? That's such a great question to ask. I think it gets you a seat at the table also, because they just see that you're thinking ahead and thinking long term, and you want to contribute.
Speaking of getting a seat at the table, I think like another thing we talked about was, and you mentioned this too in your intro, Julian, you're comfortable working with small budgets. So like startups are kind of known for being these like scrappy, take no prisoners kind of places when it comes to marketing. They'll do whatever it takes to grow.
Yeah.
And so like you said, like, you know, you typically work with small teams, but like you've got a lot of stuff to get done. So like, I guess like, how have you been able to balance that with like, I don't know, like the fact that you're one person and also just not having a lot of spend necessarily?
Yeah, and maybe just for context, so for my smallest clients, we're still making some impact for marketing. I'm working maybe a day and a half or maybe a day per week. So that's, and I'm the only marketing employee there. They have like 2 salespeople, that's it. And we're spending maybe 5K on other things like ads, mostly ads right now. In the beginning, it was also some design, and yeah, it's still some design actually, some design and website stuff. So, but like 5K a month. So it's one person plus 5K is what we have. Yeah, so that's what we've got to work with, and it's still working. Like we're still able to get some things done. And I think my secret is freelancers. I think that just I've discovered that working at one of the first startups, because I was trying to figure out like how the hell am I gonna do anything with like for example, I had like a design budget or like a website budget of maybe $500 a month, and the guy I started to work with was charging me like $80 an hour or something like that. And coming from the agency world and how I bill, like $80 an hour is not that much, but when you have a $500 budget for like website stuff, it's like $80 go poof. You haven't even done anything. They're just gone. You're like, okay, hey, can you, I don't know, change the color on one page, please? Thank you. That's all I get this month. Exaggerating to make a point, but what really changed, what kind of blew my mind is when I started, I don't know how this started, but I started looking for design freelancers. And nowadays you have access to people from all around the world in lower cost countries that do really good work at lower prices. And obviously you don't want to rip people off. You want to pay them a good wage where they're living and still get a good price for where you are. So I feel like it's a win-win. And the search is really hard to find people who do quality work, but I've been able to find people who do exceptional work. And I'm not saying like Upwork, don't go on Upwork, by the way. Upwork is not a good place. But you can find really talented people who will do great work at not so much money. And usually it's been, yeah, great relationships working with them. And they're super happy and I'm super happy. And that's how I do a lot with smaller budgets. And so that's website design is one big one. And there, I can talk about more details, but Ryan, you asked a question too. Two good questions. Okay, so why isn't Upwork a good place to go? Honestly, I just haven't found great people there. I think it's a good place to maybe find more generalists, but I haven't found really good talent there. So I typically try to outsource a couple of things. Usually it's design, development, and writing are usually the 3 big things that I try to outsource to freelancers. Design, I don't go to Upwork. I usually go to Dribbble. So that's, I'll put it in the chat here, or somebody else can if they know. It's Dribbble with 3 Bs. And you can look for designers there. They have like this premium search feature that, but you don't have to use. You can like play around with filters and do it for free too. But yeah, I just look for portfolios and I just look at cool stuff they did. That's all I do. I look at their portfolios and see what kind of projects they've worked on. Are they real live projects? Because a lot of people on Dribbble publish like portfolio pieces that aren't actually live anywhere. So I don't actually know, have they worked with anyone, or is this just yeah, something they made and is not actually published anywhere? Yeah, and then I reach out to people. I just message them like, hey, I'm looking for someone to do this in this time frame with this this hourly rate, and usually it goes from like 25 to 40. And then yeah, you find people that do good work.
What other channels have you used or like platforms have you used to find freelancers?
Yeah, in terms of development, I do a lot of work on Webflow. I like the platform quite a lot. So I've looked, Webflow has their own marketplace. So like WordPress or HubSpot CMS, it's just like a website platform where you can build and publish your website. So they have a marketplace where you can look for people. I just look at what people have built, and if I like it, I'll reach out to them. And by now I have some folks that I work with, so I'm not doing this process over and over again. So you do it once, you find, I usually find 3 people and I give 3 people a small paid test project. So I pay them for the test project. I see who's a good communicator, who does good work, and then I pick one. So that's maybe also a small tip to not, go with one, but like reach out to 10, do a test project with 3, and then see what's a good fit. And you can do that with anyone, developer, writer, designer. And then with everything, it depends on what you need, right? If you need a really technical writer who has deep expertise in a certain topic, you can't expect to pay them $30 an hour. That's probably not very, very, very realistic. But yeah, developers, writers. With writers, I think you can just open up a job posting on LinkedIn. That's usually the route I go for. So if you have like an applicant tracking system, or just a good way to manage the flood of applications that you'll get, because you'll get a lot. And then just ask people for their portfolios and then do a test project with a few of them who have really strong portfolios. But there you don't have to go looking as much because there's just such a big pool of freelance writers that are always looking for work, that they'll apply to you actually.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like with freelance, it really does come down to, and Chris just dropped this in the chat. It's like it can be labor intensive at the start to find the right person, but once you find that connection and you start to get that relationship built, and Megan also dropped this in the chat too. It's like, just more connections for your brand. You're getting it out there, and you start to spread out, and you find your person, and then you're able to just keep working together. So hopefully you find that person that fits.
Yeah. And maybe to speak to because obviously we're I'm on Gorilla stage, and you have to figure out what's the right fit for you, agency or freelance. With Gorilla and other agencies, you obviously get the whole package. You have like the quarterback who is putting it all together for you. You can't just expect to get a design freelancer and everything works out. You also need like the brain, if that makes sense, to like put it all together into a working machine. I think that's probably the tricky part. But if you feel like you've got the brain and you're just needing people to help you like deliver the vision, I think freelance is the way to go. Depending on what scale, at some point you'll probably reach a scale or a size of your marketing budget or team where it makes a lot more sense to hire someone in-house. But I think for most folks, I'm assuming we're working on smaller teams and smaller budgets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a show it was in January, right? Where we talked with the Fullerton Tool team about how they brought a developer, and they've hired their second developer on staff now, like who is employed by the company, because they have found that that's the right move for them, and they don't need freelance, they need full-time. They're ready to invest in the e-commerce side of their business, and they're getting a lot of traction there, and it just, it's starting to click. But it didn't start that way. So yeah, baby steps. I think startups are most of the time in the beginning. So
I
good to
feel
learn from about getting started.
I feel some skepticism coming from the chat in terms of freelancers. I'm curious to hear like Mike's or Chris's opinion on like where's the struggle in finding folks, because I do feel like yes, it's hard finding people, but it's possible.
And Megan, also you dropped in there that it took you several years to find that perfect fit. So if any of y'all are comfortable unmuting and kind of talking a little bit more about your freelance partnership journey.
I'll just say that the moving quickly is super important here, I think, and it definitely makes sense for the smaller teams. And if a person owns the process, and it's more of a one-to-one feedback loop. But with the bigger teams, at least any kind of external outsourcing of technical content specifically, and I experienced this with Gorilla too, the more reviews you have internally, the slower everybody moves and the less you learn, just like Julian was saying at the beginning. So that's where like at least being able to make comparisons of like which resources you have and fine tooth comb them in terms of, okay, are we big enough to, start hiring in-house or build a long-term partnership with somebody like a Gorilla 76, like instead of, you know, um, playing a lottery on Upwork.
Budget definitely comes into play for sure at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just switching gears here a bit. It sounds like, Julian, there's some things you wouldn't outsource, and maybe that's more of the like foundational work that you're doing around like positioning and maybe like some branding type work. Do you want to talk about like the importance of a strong foundation and kind of where to start there?
Yeah, definitely. So I think I've seen enough, and maybe to go back one step, a lot of times I've tried to start marketing right away. Like, okay, let's get some campaigns launched quickly and let's just get things started. Let's not hold up on, I don't know, positioning conversations because they're a pain. And what it always comes back to is when the foundation is right, everything else tends to work 10 times better. So, and I've seen this, I've seen really good marketing teams work delivering exceptional work and completely bombing. And I've seen teams. I've one startup that I joined. I was like, what the hell are they doing? But it really worked. I don't know. They weren't doing things that well. Like their Google Ads. I checked out their Google Ads campaigns. It was a mess. And LinkedIn ads. I looked at some of the creatives they made in Canva. I was like, it looked like, I don't know, am I just a college kid made the ads? But the company was doing amazing and marketing was doing amazing. That's because they got their foundation right. And it's not just marketing, it's like product market fit is where everything starts. And I think that's where marketing is in German we say, I'm German by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, but in German we say leadership, they would say they lay you an egg. I don't know how that translates, but it's just they put a roadblock in place for you if product market fit isn't there, and there's nothing you can do about it in marketing. There's just nothing you can do. You can build the best marketing, but if nobody wants your product, or if you can't compete against your competitors on price or on features or whatever it may be, then you're just not gonna, marketing is not gonna work that well. And you're gonna have to work 10 times as hard to make it work. So when I start with a new client, I work on the foundation at first. And that's not just also understanding, like asking hard questions like, are they understanding who they're selling to, why those people are buying? Do they understand how they're different from the competition? And oftentimes when I start with those startups and I have those conversations, they don't really. And sometimes it's just acknowledging that we don't, and we can't really do anything about it. And we still get started with knowing what we know, but at least we established a base of like, hey, we acknowledge that we don't have the strongest foundation. That is something that we need to work on. But I think that's probably the most important thing that goes way beyond marketing. You need to have a product that people want. And a lot of marketers aren't given that and are then blamed for marketing not working. And then the second part is, of course, if you have a product that people want, is putting that on the website and making sure that your website is able to sell that product to the best of its capability. But that's step two. I think most people try to start with step two and don't really think about step one, which again comes back to a relationship with the leadership, with the founders, that they need to give you that in order for you to be successful. That's not really your job. It's maybe your job to raise concerns like, hey, it looks like we can't really compete. I've seen XYZ, I've researched this and that, and maybe we're not in the best position right now to start marketing. Maybe we should work on that first before we start marketing. And yeah, there's other things like branding. I would probably say 5 years ago, I would have probably told you, ignore branding. It's all about what you say and not necessarily what you look like. But I think branding is still first impression, depending in what industry and who you're competing against. But a lot of tech industries, a lot of players just look super professional and put together. So if you look like the garage startup, you're just gonna have a harder time. So it's something you should consider. If your industry is super traditional and all your competitors look like they're from the Stone Age, maybe it's not super important. So that's something to consider too. But that's the foundation. So product market fit, website, branding.
So
What does the Gorilla team think? I'm curious.
yeah, I mean, I think image is important, especially when you consider in the manufacturing space, a lot of times you get to a website that hasn't been kept up, or was built by maybe an engineer, and like it has great content on it, and like all the, maybe all the products are there, but the user interface is not friendly, and then you're trying to scale up your sales process and with marketing, and folks are landing on this website that's just not super user friendly, not intuitive, and also like doesn't really put across the message that you are a modern solution to their problem that they're having today. So I think that's where to your point, Julian, it's like branding does become important at that point, because it's that first initial impression.
Yeah.
For sure. And I also agree with you that positioning conversations are not necessarily fun, but they are the most meaningful conversations that you can have. And we've talked a little bit about getting a seat at the table. I think those positioning, you're creating a table, like you're gathering people around a table with you, to have a conversation that they are not taking the time to have otherwise. I think that's where marketing really, really shines, is by facilitating those sorts of conversations that just are not happening otherwise. I can't tell you how many times that I've had conversations with clients inside industrial companies, and they're like, wow, we should have had this conversation 2 years ago. And it's like, well, and like they just never thought, like all of the resources are there. They have all the stakeholders, but it wasn't until we came in and said, hey, can I just have 3 hours of your time this morning to just talk through some stuff and like ask very pointed questions. And then you get out of that all of these resources about like just the direction you should go, and like how you could talk about something, how the customers are wanting to hear about it. Different things. So yeah, foundation
Also gives
is
you a
key.
lot of ideas of what you should do. Like sometimes when you're when you think about marketing, what am I going to do the next 3 months? You're coming up with a blanks. I don't know. You're coming up blank. It's good time to have that conversation, or revisit the conversation in your notes if you've already added, because then your plan becomes self-evident almost. Chris likes the positioning conversations.
Yeah, so I like them too. I think it's a good time. Like if you're feeling stuck and you feel like you've just been doing the same things because you always go to this show or you always publish in this trade magazine, like we call them discovery conversations, but like some sort of positioning discovery, like something centered around like goals, your differentiators, your competitive advantages, like that. Take in the morning to do that is just such a good reset to like give yourself a good foundation and give yourself a plan for what you're going to do for the next quarter or next 6 months, whatever your kind of window is there.
I think I get nervous about them because sometimes I felt like, at least in my guerrilla times now, not as much anymore, but I used to get nervous, like, geez, this is the founder and I don't know, founder, COO, and president, and God knows what of this company. I'm like a 26-year-old kid. Like, what do I have to tell these guys? But now I see it more as, like you said, Peyton, like with facilitating a conversation. I'm not here to like make the decision. I'm just here to get everyone in the room and facilitate a conversation, and not so much I don't know. Yeah. Not
You
the
don't have to
owner of the
provide all
meeting.
the insights, right?
Yeah,
You're
you don't have to know all the answers.
But you can take those and then run with them and make some really good marketing from it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And I know we're kind of getting up on time here, but there was one more point, if we can hit on it before we wrap up, which was channels. And I know you've mentioned Google Ads, you've mentioned LinkedIn, but like what's your take on just like the channels that you're using for marketing and distribution. What have you learned about that since working with more and more startups?
So the nice thing is, because I'm smaller, I can change gears a little bit. It's probably also the greatest weakness, but I can do a little bit of everything, and that's been nice because channels just depend on so many things, like your strengths as a team, where your buyers hang out, what your competitors are doing or are not doing, how much money you have. There's just so many factors that influence channels, and a lot of channels can work. For context, most of my channels are the same as Gorilla is talking about, probably. So Google Ads, LinkedIn Ads, SEO. And you could argue there's maybe another one that's like sales enablement and some kind of intent signals and figuring out how that works. But yeah, so it's nothing crazy or nothing super innovative, but in the end, it comes down to your product and your strengths. So you got to think about, with the resources that you have, what would be the best fit, and maybe not listen so much to LinkedIn influencers who say, LinkedIn ads are the best fit, or SEO is dead, or cold email is dead. You just have to figure out, you have to trust yourself a little bit. You have to take in all the information from all the people and see, what's this person doing at this company who's selling this product to these people, and what about this person over here? A little bit different situation, and you have to try to piece it together and figure out what of these pieces might work for you, and piece together your own thing that could work for you. And I think for everyone it looks a little different. So don't start with the channels, or don't obsess with the channels. Just try a few things at a time, and don't try everything at once.
Love it. There's probably a lot more we could talk about there, but I know, I know we promised to keep these things wrapped up around 45 minutes. And so, Aaron, anything else that you want to chime in here at the end?
No, just a big thank you to Julian. This is a great conversation, and thanks for everyone jumping in the chat with their experiences with freelancers and comments and questions.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, Julian, so appreciative of you being back on the show and for getting this whole shebang started. I've said it a million times. It's my favorite part of my job here at Gorilla, that I get to do this and be part of this community. So thank you to everyone that's joining us live today. If you are interested in learning more about Industrial Marketing Collective, which we announced at the beginning of the show, let us know. Reach out to a Gorilla. Joe, I know, would love to talk to you about it. He's super excited and has been working on this like nonstop. Also, like, these conversations, we do keep them going in between our twice monthly shows. So the next step for you, if you want to keep the conversation going, would be to join us in Slack. And if you want to join, please do just drop a note in the chat right now, or reach out to a Gorilla and we'll get you added to the Slack channel. Our next show is going to be on April 18th, and we're going to be talking about reporting without a CRM. So I know we talk a lot about HubSpot here. We love HubSpot, but you don't always have it. And so we have Moby, who is going to be joining us, a senior strategist here at Gorilla, to talk about how he typically tackles reporting without CRMs.
Boom. Excited for
The Lord's work.
Truly. Truly. All right, cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining again today, and we will catch up with you on the next one.